Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call. Today, we are very fortunate to have His Grace Balaram Shakti Prabhu to enlighten us on the topic of Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, 22 chapter, verse number 8. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for joining and giving your valuable time and association this morning. Before I hand over the call to you, I would like to request Raj Prabhu to give a brief introduction about Prabhuji. Raj Prabhu, over to you and welcome to the call, Raj Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Then pranam to you and all the assembled devotees. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Shri Guru and Gauranga. Hare Krishna, Balaram Shakti Prabhu. Then pranam to you. It's a brief introduction for Prabhuji. Balaram Shakti Prabhuji is a brahmachari devotee connected to ISKCON Chopati. He completed his BE in Metallurgical Engineering from NIT Tiruchirappalli in 2002. Thereafter, Prabhu joined Pennsylvania State University and graduated with a PhD in Material Science in 2007. While at Pennsylvania State University, he took up to Krishna consciousness as a member of Penn State Vedic Society. And at Penn State University, he was mentored by His Grace Yugal Kishore Prabhuji. After he moved back to India, he chose to become a full-time monk at Radha Gopinath Mandir. In May 2010, after his brahmachari training, he moved to Govardhan Eco Village and served full-time till December 2021. He is currently in Chennai assisting his aged parents. He is an extremely erudite scholar of Vaishnava scriptures, and he travels far and wide teaching these books. He is also currently engaged in teaching many of these books online also. Prabhuji is a disciple of His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj. This is a brief introduction for Prabhuji. Over to you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Nice to see you again on the call, Prabhu. We are waiting for your beautiful presentation with your beautiful PPT, Prabhuji. And we are very fortunate to have you on the call. Please take over the call, Prabhu. Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Mataji. I mean, there is nothing really beautiful about my PPT. It is generally only, text. I mean, there is nothing. I mean, of course, there is the text is the Acharya's writing, so that definitely is beautiful. But other than that, it's not so visually appealing or beautiful for that matter. Anyway, so we will continue our discussion. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Dev Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna. Actually, I apologize. The slide says verse number 1 to 7 because that was the original set of verses that was given to me. But then subsequently, Shyamagauri Mataji changed it to 8. So I forgot to change it in the initial slide. But of course, I will be speaking on 8. But in fact, we will be continuing our discussion. Hopefully this will be the last of that discussion that we had started 2 sessions back. I hope devotees remember what we were discussing about. I'll do a very quick recap of that also. So let's start and we will continue our discussion. So we are in the 5th canto, 22nd chapter, 8th verse, which is still discussing about Vedic cosmology. So I will read the verse translation and then the purport, and then we'll see what we can learn. Evam Chandrama Arka Gabastibhya Uparishtad Laksha Yojanata Upalabhyamano Arkasya Samvatsara Bhuktim Pakshabhyam Masa Bhuktim Sapada Rikshabhyam Dinenaiva Pakshabhuktim Agrachari Drutatara Gamano Bhumte. prose verse. So here he says, above the rays of the sunshine by a distance of 1 lakh yojanas or 8 lakh miles is the moon, which travels at a speed faster than that of the sun. In 2 lunar fortnights, the moon travels through the equivalent of a samvatsara of the sun. In 2.25 days, it passes through a month of the sun, and in 1 day, it passes through a fortnight of the sun. I'm sure, Pavaneshwar Prabhu would have discussed and explained these aspects. I'm not going to go into the details of the movement of sun and moon, because he would have already commented on that and discussed and explained on that particular thing. So we will just continue. So we were discussing Srila Prabhupada's purport. When we take into account that the moon is 100,000 yojanas or 800,000 miles above the rays of the sunshine, it is very surprising that the modern excursions to the moon could be possible. Since the moon is so distant, how space vehicles could go there is a doubtful mystery. Modern scientific calculations are subject to one change after another, and therefore they are uncertain. Of course, if you see historically, the distance between sun and earth has been revised so many times, and it has changed by significant figures. It has been changed. It is according to modern science, but Prabhupada says that according to the Vedic calculations, there is one figure that is given and which is not getting revised again and again. So Prabhupada says, you have a choice. What do you want to choose? Something which is getting revised now. So like someone may say, you can't say what does science say about the distance between sun and earth? That's not a very valid question. Actually, you can ask any scientist for that matter. So all you can ask is, what is the current agreed distance between sun and earth according to science? They know it is going to get revised, and by how much, no one knows. With more modern equipments and other such things, it will get revised and it will get revised and it will get revised, and for how long, no one knows. So Prabhupada says you have a choice to accept. So Prabhupada says we have to accept the calculations of the Vedic literature. These Vedic calculations are steady. The astronomical calculations made long ago and recorded in the Vedic literature are correct even now. Whether the Vedic calculations or modern ones are better may remain a mystery for others, but as far as we are concerned, we accept the Vedic calculations to be correct. This is what Srila Prabhupada is mentioning here. So now I would like to continue our discussion, which we started last time. If you remember, I will do a quick recap of it. And as we did last time, or the last couple of times, this is going to be quite an interactive session. So I really want people to interact. Please keep your chat box open and communicate. Whatever you think. No opinion is a silly opinion and an unimportant opinion. So you can please share your thoughts. I will be asking you every time and again. And if someone would like to speak, I would really appreciate. You can please raise your hands. I can unmute you. So we may not have the official Q&A sessions towards the end. I'm not sure if you would have time for that, but I'm going to pause every now and then to take some discussion points and questions. So when I pause, so please do share your thoughts, share your comments, ask questions, either in the chat box or raise your hands and verbally ask. It would be really helpful for others. So, and when I ask you to answer some questions, please do answer, because that way we will learn, because this is going to be almost like a workshop that we started the last to last session, and this is the third session we are continuing this workshop. So we were discussing on this theme of understanding our own practice of bhakti. So what we did till now in this theme, I will quickly recap. Okay. So the question was, am I practicing Shuddha Bhakti? So this was a question. We started by saying, okay, let us understand the definition of pure devotional service. We saw the definition of pure devotional service as given by Srila Rupa Goswami. Anya bilashita shunyam jnana karma dhyanavritam anukulyena krishnanushilanam bhaktir uttama. So this was the definition of uttama bhakti. We saw the meaning of these words, meaning of these phrases. Anya bilashita shunyam means having no other desire other than the desire to please Krishna. Jnana karma dhyanavritam means one's own practice is not covered by jnana, karma, etc. And anukulyena means with a favorable attitude. Krishna anushilanam means that which includes not just a favorable attitude, but that favorable attitude transforms into either physical or mental service to Krishna. So this was the definition that we saw. And then I took an opinion poll. According to this definition, how many of you think that your practice fits this definition of pure devotional service? Anya bilashita shunyam jnana karma dhyanavritam. Practically everyone told, no, Prabhu, it does not fit. Then when I asked which aspect of it, most of you shared that our practice is not anya bilashita shunyam. We do have desires while practicing devotional service. So then the question was, if your practice is not pure, if it is not pure devotional service, then is it mixed devotional service? So for that, we need to know the definition of mixed devotional service. So we saw the definition of mixed devotional service from Srila Kapiladev's teachings in the 3rd canto, 29th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. We saw devotional service in mode of goodness, devotional service in mode of passion, and devotional service in mode of ignorance. We saw these 3 definitions. Okay. And then I again took an opinion poll and asked you, are you practicing mixed devotional service? If you say that your practice of devotional service does not fit the definition of pure devotional service, now that we have seen the definition of mixed devotional service, does your practice fit the definition of mixed devotional service? Most of you said, yes, Prabhu. So it looks very much like we are practicing mixed devotional service. Sometimes it is sattvic, sometimes rajasic, sometimes tamasic. Then I said, well, I have one more definition. Share your thoughts. Then I shared the definition of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, which says that we took the classic definition of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti from Srimad Bhagavatam 11th canto, teachings of Krishna to Uddhava in Uddhava Gita, where he says, Jata Shraddho Matkatasu Nirvinna Sarva Karmasu Veda Dukkatmakam Kaman Parityage Api Anishwarah Tato Bhajeta Mam Preetah Shraddalu Dridhanishchaya Jushamanascha Tan Kaman Dukko Darkamscha Garhayan. So where, to summarize the teachings, he says that that person has developed faith in Krishna consciousness and he is not attached to any other karma, jnana, yoga, etc. And he very much understands that any endeavor for sense gratification will lead to suffering, but he is not able to give up sense gratification completely all the time. And Jushamanascha Tan Kaman Dukko Darkamscha Garhayan. And whenever he is unable to give up that sense gratification and he succumbs to that sense gratification, he feels repentant. This was the definition of a Vaidhi Sadhaka. Then I took the opinion poll again, that which of these 3 definitions aptly describes your practice? 1, 2, or 3. Is it pure devotional service, mixed devotional service, or Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti? Practically everyone said Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. But then we saw that how Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that this Anyabilashita Shunyam verse is the Paribhasha Sutra, which means he says this definition is consistently there in every single subsequent definition that comes, that is presented in Sri Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So which means sadhana bhakti is also uttama bhakti, vaidhi sadhana bhakti is also uttama bhakti. So therefore, if you found your definition of if you found your practice of bhakti fits the definition of vaidhi sadhana bhakti, according to Rupa Goswami, it should fit the definition of uttama bhakti also. But you thought, oh, my practice of bhakti is not uttama bhakti because it's not anyabilashita shunyam, but my practice fits vaidhi sadhana bhakti. According to Rupa Goswami, it is not possible. If you remember the discussion, right? Then we saw, how do we understand this? Okay. So then in order to understand this, we saw that actually we have two types of desires. Okay. Desires which are born out of one's value system and desires which are born out of one's conditioning. So these are like two types of desires that we have, which are quite different. So the value system describes, the value system presents what is right, what is wrong. Like we have received the pure devotional value system, which says this is right, this is wrong. Okay. Anukulyasya sankalpo pratikulyasya varjanam. These things are favorable for bhakti, you should accept. These things are unfavorable for bhakti, you should reject. So the value system describes in terms of right and wrong, whereas the conditioning decides based on what you like and what you don't like. So every human being, not every human being, I would say, actually sadhakas, they have to deal with these two types of stimuli. Okay, the stimulus that comes from value system and the stimulus that comes from conditioning. The value system, you can call it as Shraddha, and the conditioning, you can call it as Swabhava. And there is always a constant tug of war between these two types of, these two stimuli. Sometimes you really like doing something which is strictly forbidden in the Shastras. Sometimes you really don't like doing something which the Shastras strongly recommend to be very favorable for one's bhakti. So we always face this, dynamic tug of war between these two types of stimuli, the conditioning and value system. And we understood, okay, and we saw that desires which are born out of one's value system or Shraddha, they are called as Abhilasha, and desires which are born out of one's conditioning or Swabhava, they are called as Anartha. Okay. And then we saw examples of Abhilasha and Anartha. You only identified which is Anartha and which is Abhilasha, right? The desire to please the spiritual master, desire to chant quality rounds. These are desires which are born out of one's value system, out of one's faith. But sometimes people may be struggling with desires which are born out of one's conditioning, like desire for opposite sex, fits of anger and greed and things like that, which they may know that it is not very favorable for bhakti, but still one may have an itch for these kind of things, which is coming from the conditioning. So then, if you remember, we did the exercise. I asked you to close your eyes and I gave you two bins, the Abhilasha bin and the Anartha bin. And I asked you to segregate your desires into Abhilasha and Anartha and put it in the appropriate bins, right? And then I asked you to keep your Abhilasha bin and return and give me your Anartha bin. Okay. And then we did this exercise of now tell me, is your practice of bhakti anyabhila shunyam? And practically all of you agreed. Yes, 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 yes. It is anyabhilashita shunyam. So why did we initially think that my practice of bhakti is not anyabhilashita shunyam? Because we were mixing these two types of desires. We were mixing anarthas and abhilashas, and we were thinking that they were one and the same, but in reality they are different, right? So so then we try to understand, but then why is it that my when I saw the definitions of Vaidhi Bhakti, and I found that okay, my practice fits this. And when I saw the definition of mixed devotional service also, why did I find that I am practicing mixed devotional service? So then we saw the difference between mixed devotional service and Vaidhi Sadhana. Vaidhi Sadhana is performing devotional service while being embarrassed by material desires. I don't want to indulge in it, but what can I do? The urge is too strong. Whereas mixed devotional service is performing devotional service for fulfilling those desires. Sukha sampati gar aave kashta mite tanka. You know, what's wrong? I'm worshipping the Supreme Lord. I am worshipping Krishna. I know he is the Lord of this whole universe. So if I worship him and I'm asking him for something that I need, I'm not asking any demigod. So what is wrong? I want some fame. I'm asking Krishna. He is the one who can give, right? So what is wrong in that? That is mixed devotional service. While a Vaidhi sadhaka is struggling with this desire for fame, while he knows that this is not pure devotional service, he knows that one day I have to give up this itch, but I am not able to give it up right now. He understands that, right? So there is that way, even though you may see a mixed devotee and a Vaidhi sadhaka both indulging sometimes in materialistic urges, responding to their materialistic urges, you have to understand there is a difference. Okay. And we have to ask ourselves, which category do I fall in? Do I fall in the category of a Vaidhi sadhaka, or do I fall in the category of a mixed devotee? Right. So we did this exercise. Then the question arises, okay, your explanation seems okay. Is there any Shastric proof for this? For this, you are talking about this tug of war between the Shraddha and Swabhava, this dynamic relationship that exists between them. Is there any Shastric proof for this? So we did see some proofs. We saw some evidences from the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, Sadrisham cheshtate swasya prakrite jnanavanapi prakritim yanti bhutani nigraha kim karishyati. So where Krishna says, oh no, it's very difficult to suppress one's conditioning. The swabhava is very strong and it's very difficult to suppress it. But in the very next verse, he says, um, likes and dislikes are firmly fixed in all the sense objects, but one should not come under their control, their obstacles. So we understood that Krishna is indicating that, look, the urge to respond to your likes is very strong, but this is not good. You should rather ask the Shastras what is the right thing for me to do. So Krishna is telling here, subdue. So the suggestion that Krishna is giving here in this verse is, he says, subdue your conditioning by acting according to your value system. Subdue your conditioning by acting according to your value system. Strengthen your faith. Strengthen your Shastric faith. When your Shastric faith becomes stronger, then you will be able to pull you, then the Shraddha can win the tug of war. That's what he's indicating in this verse. And we try to understand based on this, what is the meaning of free will, right? So free will does not mean when I like something and I do it, that I'm not exercising my free will. Free will means, because that is not the will of the jiva, that is the that is the urge of the conditioning. We are responding to the itch of the conditioning. We are responding to the itch of the three modes. That is not the desire of the jiva. That is not the will of the jiva. Okay. But when we are responding according to the edicts of the scriptures, which say this is right, do it, this is not right, refrain from doing it. When we make our choice based on that, that is exercising our free will. We understood that. Okay. So anyway, and then we also saw the example from the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, "Oh Arjuna, what is it that is pushing me to perform these sinful activities even though I don't want to do it?" That Arjuna not wanting to do it, that is coming from his value system. And then he is addressing that activity as papam. This is sinful. So whether something is a sin or a pious activity, that understanding has come from his Shastric understanding. That is his value system. But still, he is unable to refrain from indulging in it. That push is coming from the conditioning, which Krishna calls as kama. Kamayesha krodayesha rajoguna samudbhavan. Mahashano mahapapma vidyena miha vairinam, as Krishna says. Right? So this is another example that we saw. The third example that we saw was the Chatushloki, the 3rd and 4th Chatushloki, where Krishna says, Tesham satata yuktanam vajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayantite. Krishna says, I give intelligence to those who are satata yuktanam, who constantly desire to be with me, vajatam priti purvakam, who worship me with great love. I give them the intelligence by which they can attain my direct association, Krishna says. Right. So these are people who constantly desire to be with Krishna and they worship Krishna with great love. But in the very next verse, Krishna says, Tesham eva anukampartam aham agyanajam tamaha nashayami. Jnanadipen. He says, to show favor to them, I extinguish the darkness born of ignorance which is there with heart. Now, where does this darkness born of ignorance, where does this darkness born of ignorance appear in people who are constantly desiring to be with Krishna and worship Krishna with great love? Is it possible? And we saw Srila Baldev Bhushan's explanation of this. He says, for those who cannot maintain their lives without me. So this is the first thing. So such people cannot maintain their lives without Krishna. And he calls them for my unalloyed devotees alone. Okay, they are unalloyed devotees. So he says, I reveal in the Atma my dazzling form and qualities and destroy darkness in the form of desires for objects other than myself. So Krishna says, I destroy the darkness for desires, darkness in the form of desires for others other than Krishna. So now the question is, if such a person has desires for objects other than Krishna, then how is he an unalloyed devotee? How can such a person who has desire for objects other than Krishna, how can he maintain his, how is it that he cannot maintain his life without Krishna? Right? So we understood that what is unalloyed is the faith. The faith of the devotee is unalloyed, but the desire for objects other than Krishna, that is there in his swabhava or his conditioning. So one can have pure faith but contaminated swabhava. So, pure faith and contaminated swabhava is a classic Vaidhi sadhaka who is still within the realm of anartha nivritti. For whom anartha nivritti is not accomplished, he will always have this problem. Okay. He is unalloyed. His faith is unalloyed. He wants to worship only Krishna. He wants to do everything only for the pleasure of Krishna. But at the same time, the baggage that he is carrying, it is like a person carrying or hiking up a mountain, carrying a 50-kilogram backpack. Okay. While he clearly wants to climb up the mountain, the weight of that baggage will keep pulling him down sometimes. Right. So that is there. So therefore he is unalloyed. At the same time, within his bag are desires for objects other than Krishna. So we need to learn to separate our conditioning from our inner self, faith. And similarly, we should do it for others also. When someone is acting inappropriately, he may not be responding to his conviction. He may be responding to his conditioning. How do we know what he is responding to? Because I will just make this one point and I will pause, because with this we are ending our recap and then we are going to start today's session, right? So what we see as action, okay, when a person is performing an action, that action is a vector sum of two vectors. One is the value system vector, and the conditioning vector. Okay. So which means basically his value system is like this and his conditioning is like this. Okay. He has 100 units of value system and 50 units of conditioning. So his final action will be 50 units. Okay. But this is a vector sum of these two things. Sometimes it may happen that he has 50 units of Shraddha or value system and 100 units of conditioning. So in the end, if he has action, he may end up doing an action which is absolutely not recommended in Shastras. So therefore, that does not mean he does not believe in Bhakti. That does not mean he does not believe in the teachings of Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. It could just mean that his conditioning is much more overpowering than his conviction in the Shastras. Right? So therefore, the point is that we cannot judge any person based on his action, and especially devotees. We cannot judge devotees based on their actions, because their action is a complex addition of two different stimuli. Faith is just one of them. So action need not necessarily suggest give a suggestion about their faith. That is the point that we are discussing here. So if you see a person performing an inappropriate act, that need not necessarily indicate that he has an ill intent or he does not believe in the tenets of devotional service, or he does not trust the teachings of Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. This need not necessarily mean that. That is the point. And this is where we paused the last time we concluded. But before we start today's discussion, any quick comments, any quick questions? If anyone has, and please raise your hands. Maybe just 1 or 2 minutes we will take, and then we will continue with our discussion. Okay, Mother Gail.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Boy, this is
Yes.
so fantastic. Anyway, my question goes all the way back to when you were saying that something like our desires for sense objects are in the objects themselves, something like that?
Yeah, that is a conventional presentation, Mataji. In reality, our desire for objects is not in the objects, it's there in our mind actually.
Yeah.
Past tense. Yeah. That's a conventional way of telling. That is not like strictly um, mm, uh, that's not like strictly technically correct, but it's a conventional way of telling that it's there, but it's not there, it's here actually.
Okay, great, because I didn't understand that. Okay, and just another very quick thing, last thing is when you were trying to illustrate that this tug of war exists between our Shraddha and our Swabhava, our values and our Swabhava. You were showing that those things, that tug of war exists, is illustrated in the Gita. And you gave 3 examples. And I think the first one might have been coming from the 6th chapter of the Gita. And I didn't quite catch that first example.
One is also third chapter.
Okay,
Chapter.
then maybe it's the second one, because I
second one is the very next this is the subsequent verses 3.33, 3.34. These are the first set of examples that we gave. Then the second example was again 3rd chapter only. Arjuna is telling what is it that is impelling me to act inappropriately.
Yeah. Okay, no, not that one. The one where you included this Abhilashita, not Abhilashita. Oh my God. When the mind is stronger than the wind, maybe. Yeah, the mind is stronger. When Arjuna was saying the mind is harder to control than the wind.
Oh, yeah. We didn't quote that verse, but that verse is there in 6th chapter. But we didn't quote that verse.
So you didn't quote that verse during that when you were explaining the 3 ways in which this thing is present in the Gita? No?
You mean last time or this time, Madhu?
This time.
Today? No.
Okay, all right. I just have to try and find it again in the recording. But thank you so much, Prabhu.
Thank you. Sundari Gopi Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I just wanted to know about this value system. Sorry, I did not attend your first class, so I'm a little understanding still what's happening. So this value system, is it that comes from our birth or after we join Krishna consciousness? What is it?
Yeah, after we take up to Krishna consciousness. The tenets of the teachings of bhakti define, what is right, what is wrong. Yeah.
Okay. So you mean the Shastras that we read or whatever we get it from devotees and from Guru Maharaj and all that. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Anuradha Mataji.
Hi, Krishna Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. My question is, Prabhu, we have this Sat Ripus, right? The 6 enemies of ours, lust, greed, anger, pride, etc. And also we have Anarthas. How are they connected, Prabhu? Is it Anarthas coming out of the... Same thing?
Yeah. When I say Anarthas, I'm talking about the Ripus, the enemies. Lust, anger, envy, greed, illusion.
So we have 6 Anarthas on a gross level, is it, in that case?
You can, if you choose to, bifurcate in that way, you can have 6, but there are many ways in which you can define Anarthas. More or less you can say 6. Yeah, you can say 6 broad.
Okay, wonderful, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay. There is one thing in the chat box. How do we understand Krishna speaks Esham to Antagatam Papam? He speaks only those who clear the sinful reactions can practice my bhakti in a determined way. But we saw those who are doing sin also may practice bhakti. Does this mean they cannot practice it in a determined way? If they do sin, aren't they moving away from bhakti and becoming weak in their bhakti? Well, we have to see very beautiful point that was brought. I don't know how many of you understood. Krishna in his Bhagavad Gita, I'm just trying to utilize the space in a nice way. So in 7.28, Krishna speaks this verse, Yesham tu antagatam papam. I will write that verse. This will help us understand. Tu antagatam papam janam punyakarmanam te dvandva moha nirmukta bhajante mam trida vrata. This is the verse. So Krishna says here, Esham tu, but those people, antagatam papam. Papam here refers to sinful desires. Those who have put an end to sinful desires. How one can put an end to sinful desires? He says, Punya karmanam. Punya karmanam can, in one sense, mean activities which are pious activities. But in one sense, pious activities do not neutralize sin. We know this. So here, Punya karmanam means pleasing activities. Activities which are pleasing to Krishna, activities which are very pleasing to the devotees. So Punya karmanam here refers to devotional service. So by practice of devotional service, one who has put an end to his sinful desires, such people, dvandva moha nirmukta, they can overcome the dualities of life, which means they will not be affected by heat, cold, honor, dishonor, all those dualities. And therefore, bhajante mam drida vrata, they can worship me with determination. Okay. So basically, what Krishna is telling is, by performing devotional service, if you can destroy your sinful desires, you can practice devotional service steadily with determination. So basically what this verse says is, by bhajana kriya, devotional service is bhajana kriya. By engagement in devotional service, it leads to anartha nivritti, which is destruction of sinful desires. And when sinful desires get destroyed, then you reach the stage of nishtha, where you can practice devotional service steadily or with determination. So that verse does not say that it is impossible to practice bhakti with sinful desires. It means you cannot practice devotional service steadily with sinful desires. But how do you overcome the sinful desires? By practice of bhakti only. And by practicing bhakti, when you overcome the sinful desires, then you reach steady practice of devotional service. That is what it means. Is that okay, Prabhu? Hari Prasad Prabhu, is that fine? Okay. Okay, there is another. Okay, fine. So I think if there are no further discussion points, questions, we will move ahead. For those of you who joined late, we are discussing, or we have been discussing proofs from Bhagavad Gita or the Shastras, where this tug of war between Shraddha and Swabhava, which we are discussing now, the dynamics between these two that we are discussing. So another classic verse, this is like a verse which very clearly establishes this point. I think I will I will stop my video because it is slowing down my internet. So I will stop my video for a while, and then I will switch it on when I am taking question and answers. I apologize. Okay. So, okay. So he says, Apichet suduracharo bhajate mam ananya bhag sadureva samantavya samyak vyavasito hi saha. So Krishna says, this is a very classic verse. Hear this very carefully. Apichet, even if su duracharo, the most sinful person. So he is the most sinful. He is not just any sinful person, but he is the most sinful person. Bhajate mam, he worships me. So he worships Krishna. Ananya bhak, with no other desire than to please me. Now you see, doesn't it sound contradictory? On one side, you say Krishna is calling him Sudurachari, most sinful. Then how can you worship Krishna with no other desire other than the desire to please him? So Krishna says, Sadur eva samantavyaha. I consider that person to be my devotee. Samyak vyavasito hi saha. As he has fixed himself completely in me, I consider him to be my devotee, Krishna says. So beautiful purport by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti and Srila Prabhupada. We will just read it. So he says, my attachment to my devotee is my very nature, Krishna says. That attachment does not decrease even if the devotee commits wrong, for I make him come up to the highest standard. Krishna says, I will take responsibility for him. So if someone with bad conduct, what is bad conduct? He says, addicted to violence, okay, addicted to thievery, addicted to adultery. I mean, he says this is Sudurachari. He's addicted to all these kinds of sinful activities. If he worships me and worships no one except me, and does not follow any other process like karma or jnana, and has no other desire than my desire, he is my devotee. So which means Krishna is indicating here, one can be troubled by these various kinds of conditionings, but still one can have no other desire other than the desire to please Krishna, right? So here Krishna is clearly making this difference between faith and conditioning, because the addiction to violence, thievery, and adultery is coming from his strong conditioning baggage, right? But his desire is to please Krishna for Krishna's pleasure. Okay. So someone may ask, but considering his bad conduct, how is he a devotee? Someone may ask Krishna, oh Krishna, your devotee are calling him. You see what he is doing. See his conduct. How can you call him a devotee? So Krishna says, he is to be respected as a devotee because of his devotee qualities. See his devotee qualities. He wants to worship me. Isn't that good? It is a command. Not doing so is offense. My order is the authority. My order is the authority. Just listen to it. So then the person says, okay, please don't get offended. Let me try to clarify, or let me seek a clarification here. So my understanding is, so Krishna, do you mean to say that he should be considered a devotee in that portion where he worships you, and as a non-devotee in that portion where he commits adultery? So whenever he is worshipping you, he is your devotee, right? And whenever he is committing adultery or thievery, he is a non-devotee. That's what you mean, right? That is the clarification that someone may seek. Krishna says, no, he should be considered as a devotee in all his parts. You should not see his bad qualities at all. What does it mean when Krishna says don't see his bad qualities? It means do not consider his conditionings while Do not consider his conditionings while judging him. See his faith, right? That's what he's indicating. No, he should be considered as a devotee in all his parts. You should not see his bad qualities at all. He is completely convinced. So what does it mean? He makes a splendid resolution. I will go to hell for my sinful actions which are hard to give up, but I will not give up dedicated worship of Krishna. Whatever happens, I will not give up my dedicated worship of Krishna. So this is apichet suduracharo bhajate mam ananyabhak sadureva samantavya samyak vyavasito hi saha. Right. So Srila Prabhupada also writes a beautiful purport here. He says, the word sudurachar used in this verse is very significant and we should understand it properly. So Prabhupada writes, when a living entity is conditioned, he has two kinds of activities. One is conditional and the other is constitutional. You see, conditional, constitutional. Okay. As for protecting the body or abiding by the rules of the society and state, certainly there are different activities even for the devotees in connection with the conditional life, and such activities are called as conditional. Besides these, the living entity who is fully Krishna conscious of his spiritual nature and is engaged in Krishna consciousness or the devotional service of the Lord has activities which are transcendental. So, conditional activities are with respect to one's conditionings, and constitutional activity is devotional service. Such activities are performed in his constitutional position and they are technically called as devotional service, right? So Prabhupada talks about these two. Now, in the conditioned state, sometimes devotional service and the conditional service in relationship with the body parallel with one another. Parallel, right? Your conditioning may be favorable for Krishna consciousness. Okay, let me ask you a question. You can please raise your hands. How many of you, before coming to Krishna consciousness, even before coming to Krishna consciousness, you had a habit of rising early in the morning? You can please raise your hands. How many of you, even before coming to Krishna consciousness, used to rise up early in the morning? There are a few hands up here, right? So this means actually your conditioning is parallel to the constitution. For bhakti, it requires that one rises up early in the morning, and your conditioning is you are not rising up early because the scriptures say, you are rising up early because that is your habit. That's all, right? So that is called as conditioning and constitution parallel. Okay. He says, but then again, sometimes these activities become opposed to one another. Again, how many of you before coming to Krishna consciousness did not have a habit of rising up early? Anyone? We will not judge you. You can please raise your hands. Don't worry. Okay. Yeah. Some of you are raising your hands. So the point is, this is a classic case of conditioning and constitution being anti-parallel or against each other, right? So Srila Prabhupada says, as far as possible, a devotee is very cautious so that he does not do anything that could disrupt this wholesome condition, which means as far as possible, a devotee should not try to do anything which will scratch his conditioning and will create an urge which is unfavorable for practicing devotional service. As far as possible, he will avoid it. Okay. He knows that perfection in his activities depends on his progressive realization of Krishna consciousness. Anyway, we will not go through the whole purport. Okay. So in the very next verse, Krishna says, so this verse, Apichet Suduracharo, indicates this classic is where Krishna says, he is most sinful, but he worships me with no other desire other than the desire to please me. So this having no other desire but the desire to please Krishna comes from his faith, Shraddha. But The Sudurachari nature comes from his Swabhava. Right? Krishna says, Shipram bhavati dharmatma shashvat shantim nigachati kaunteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashati. Shipram bhavati dharmatma. Don't worry, Arjuna. He will very soon become a dharmatma. He will very soon become very righteous. Shashvat shantim nigachati. And he will become completely devoid of contamination. O Kaunteya, pratijanihi, declare, name bhakta pranashati, that my devotee shall never perish. Which means, as long as he is worshipping me, as long as he is worshipping me, I will not allow the devotee's conditioning to ruin his life. I will take care. He says, Shipram Bhavati Dharmatma. I guarantee that he will very soon become very righteous. That's what he says. So, here he says, so the opposing argument, someone is opposing the argument of Krishna. He says, how can you accept the worship of such a sinful person? How can you eat the food and drink offered by a heart contaminated with lust and anger? How can you do this? Someone may ask this. So, Krishna says, it's your problem. Very quickly he becomes righteous. Krishna says, he will become righteous very soon. So, here he says, the present is used and not the future to express the fact that having committed sin, by remembering the Lord, he becomes repentant and thus very quickly becomes righteous. So when he commits a sin, he knows, oh, I am displeasing Krishna, I am displeasing Guru Maharaj, and he feels repentance. And that repentance leads to his becoming righteous in future. Oh, how unfortunate I am. There is no one as low as I bringing bad name to the devotees. He feels like I am a black mark in the association of devotees. Repeatedly, he feels complete disgust for those actions. Or, he says, another example, another explanation. The use of the present tense can indicate that in the future, he will develop righteousness fully, but even right now, righteousness exists in a subtle form. So where does that righteousness in a subtle form exist? I want you to type in the chat box. Can you share? What do you think? Where does that righteousness in a subtle form exist? Even though it's explicitly not there outside, it is not visible outside. Where does that subtle righteousness, where does it reside? You can share your thoughts. Yes, Mother Gail.
In his regret.
In his regret. And where did regret come from?
From his soul. From
his value system, right? Value system, Shraddha. Yeah. So his faith, right? So thank you. So that is coming from his faith, right? Which says this is wrong. So that is so he says, after taking medicine, even though the destructive effects of fever or poison remains for some time, it is not considered seriously, right? So you should not say, Prabhupada says that when the fan switches off, the fan is not going to stop immediately. It will take some time, right? It will rotate for a while before it stops. So if you want to look at a devotee, don't look at the fan, look at the switch. You should not say, "Arey, it's still rotating. It's still rotating." Yes, it is rotating, but look at the switch. The switch is off. Wait for some time. The fan will keep running because of that inertia, but once that inertia gets over, it will stop. As Prabhupada says, don't criticize a dirty person who is standing below the shower. This is Prabhupada's own words. Don't criticize a dirty person who is standing below the shower. He is dirty, no doubt, but he is standing below the shower. It's just a question of time when he will become neat and clean. Right? So similarly, if someone has taken up to bhakti, it is just a question of time before anartha nivritti will be accomplished and they will become free of anarthas. But why are you so eager to criticize them for their current situation? Don't you see that they have accepted the path of bhakti? That is the point. Thus, with the entrance of bhakti in his mind, the sinful actions are not taken seriously. And the traces of sin, such as lust and anger, should be considered insignificant, like the biting of a toothless snake. Okay. So, I will share one example. I will share one story. This is not a story. This is a real event that happened here in Chowpatty, where I am sitting right now. Just below, there was a person, there was a devotee, and who he met a chain smoker on his way. He was literally a chain smoker. So he used to light his next cigarette with the previous cigarette, which means every day he used to use only one matchstick to light. One matchstick to light his cigarette, which means avyartha kalatvam, not a minute goes without cigarette in his mouth. That was the kind of addict he was. And this devotee met this person, and somehow he shared few things, and over a period of time, this chain smoker became interested in Krishna consciousness. He started visiting the temple, and gradually he started attending Mangalarti also. So he would come for the Mangalarti after the Guruvashtakam prayers get over. After Yasya Prasadat Bhagavat Prasado, he would just run down. Of course, if you have seen Radha Gopinath temple, it's in the first floor. So he would run down, go outside the gate and smoke one cigarette. And then wash his hands and mouth, come back again. By the time Narsingarti starts, he will be there. Then Narsingarti, Tulsi Arti, then after he circumambulates Tulsi Marani, he would run down, smoke one cigarette, wash his hands and mouth, come back. By the when Sikshashtakam gets over, by the time it's ready for chanting, he would sit and chant. And after every 4 rounds, he would go down, smoke one cigarette, wash his hands and mouth, and come back. Like that. For a few days, this was happening, and few people started observing it. One person had the guts to say, I mean, something is wrong here. Why is he going down again? So one day he followed this person. He went down, he went outside the gate, and outside the gate, he went to a very dark corner. And he was wondering, what is he doing? So he went, and when he was going close, he started smelling cigarette. And then he saw that he had cigarette in his mouth. And he thought, you rascal. Huh? All the while I was thinking that we all were thinking that you are such a sincere devotee, that you are cheating everyone by coming and secretly doing all these nefarious activities. I will catch you red-handed and red mouth with cigarette in your mouth. So he went and caught the collar of that person. And then he turned. And then when he looked close, he realized that this person had cigarette in his mouth and tears in his eyes. He was crying and smoking. And when the devotee caught him, he fell at the feet of the devotee and he said, Prabhu, please don't stop me from coming to temple. I was such a hopeless addict of this habit, of this smoking. But after taking up the Krishna consciousness, slowly I am getting some strength to give this up. Yes, I am smoking, I don't deny that, but I am having hope that I will give it up. Give me some time. Please don't stop me from attending the morning program. Trust me, I will work on this, but please don't stop me. With tears, and the devotee was thinking, who is the devotee here? I don't have this kind of eagerness. If someone catches hold of my collar and speaks to me this way, I will never visit this temple. But this person is begging me to allow him to attend Mangalarti, and he is wondering, what is this? What am I to, what am I supposed to conclude? On one hand, he is smoking like that. And then over a period of time, this person within a few months gave up smoking completely. Not only did he give up smoking completely, over a period of time, he got initiated. Not only that, seeing him, his family members got initiated. And now he is one of the very powerful preachers, and he preaches and he transforms many of those addicts also, right? So the point is, Krishna says, Shipram bhavati dharmatma shashvat shantim nigacchati. Kaunteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. I'll tell you another story. And this is a story which Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur narrates. I mean, he does not narrate. He had shared this with Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, and Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur narrated it to his disciples. Once Bhaktivinoda Thakur had a dream. Bhaktivinoda Thakur had a dream. And that dream, he was in Yamaloka, of all the places. And there was a meeting between Yamaraj, Narada Muni, and Lord Shiva. I think it was Lord Shiva. These three were sitting and they were discussing something. And what were they discussing? They were discussing this verse. Shipram bhavati dharmatma shashvat shantim nigacchati. Kaunteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. This is the verse they were discussing. And they had a problem with this verse. Krishna says, in the previous verse, he says, Bhajate Mam. This person worships me. And then he says, he will become dharmik, dharmatma. So, Narada Muni is asking, how can you say this? Krishna, beginning of 9th chapter says, Rajavidya Rajaguhyam Pavitram Midamuttamam Pratyaksha Dharmyam. He calls bhakti as dharma. So one who practices bhakti is already dharmatma. So why does Krishna says he will become dharmatma? So I don't understand this. So Lord Shiva said, well, this is difficult. Only a Vaishnava can answer this question. And then they were wondering, where will we find a Vaishnava? And then in a distance, they saw Bhaktivinoda Thakur walking with his 12 tilaks very shining brightly. They said, oh, that is a Vaishnava. Let's go and ask him. So they called Bhaktivinoda Thakur and they asked, oh Mahashai, can you please explain? How is it? Krishna says, bhakti is dharma. So one who is practicing bhakti is a dharmatma. But here he says, after practicing bhakti, one becomes a dharmatma. How would you explain this? Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, very simple. Krishna says, what is the previous verse? Apichet suduracharo bhajate mam ananya bhat sadhureva samantavya samyak vyavasito hi saha. He says that even if one is a durachari, if he is worshipping me exclusively, you should consider him to be a sadhu. He says, whoever considers such a durachari devotee to be a sadhu, he will very soon become a dharmatma. That is what Krishna is explaining. This is the insight that Bhaktivinoda Thakur offered. The one worshipping Krishna, he is anyway a dharmatma, but one who is refraining to judge that devotee because of his conditioning, by the power of not judging that devotee, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, he will become a dharmatma. Krishna will make him into dharmatma. Because you refuse to judge someone who is very dear to Krishna. Krishna becomes very pleased. Even though there were explicitly many reasons for you to judge that devotee, but because you refrained from judging that devotee, I will make you into a dharmatma. That is the example. That is the explanation that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives here. Shipram bhavati dharmatma shashvat shantim nigacchati. Kaunteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. Like that. So, so these are some of the examples that we saw from Bhagavad Gita, where this struggle between the Shraddha and Swabhava is brought out very clearly, explicitly. It's brought out here. Now we are going to see some references from Srimad Bhagavatam. I may not have much time. I may have to skip some references, but I will speak about some references. But at this point, I will pause to see, are there any quick discussion points, comments, anything anyone would like to share, ask, add? Anything? Okay, if there is none, then we will continue our discussion. Okay, there is one hand up. Lalitangi Radha Mataji. You can speak, Mataji. Lalitangi Radha Mataji.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for the wonderful explanation. So my question is, how do we know that a person is wanting to give up, feeling bad, because of he's wanting to give up and feeling bad, but he's not able to, and he's continuing his apparently contradictory activities. And a person who doesn't want to give up, but thinking that it is okay to be like this and continuing to do that.
Actually, for that, you have to earn that person's trust. That is the only way. If you invest in establishing a relationship with that person, and that person feels you very trustworthy, and he or she becomes very confident and comfortable to open up their heart and share their struggles, only then can be sure. Otherwise, we can be sure about ourselves. We cannot be sure about anyone else.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. That makes sense. And one more thing is, like the gross conditionings and big thing like meat eating and others, people would leave. But the subtle things, when it comes, I mean, I came across one person who was very, like as you say, very, very much fond of eating meat, but gave it up like nothing. But he's not able to give up drinking tea.
Okay.
So for years together now. So how, I mean, I'm not able to help him because I'm not able to understand how to help and what is lacking there.
You can pray for him.
Yeah. Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Anuradha Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Once again, thank you so much for both the stories. Towards the end of it, Prabhu, when you're saying that what Bhakti Vinod Thakur's explanation was, did you say that Bhakti Vinod Thakur gave like as the person who is judging rather than the person actually doing it? That's what you were saying? That's what the verse means?
Yeah, that is one of the explanations of that verse that Bhakti Vinod Thakur gives.
Like if we let go and thinking like it's between him
if
and
you
Krishna.
don't judge a devotee because of his conditioning, Krishna takes special interest in you. That's what it means.
Okay, we can also pray that even if I'm judging, I don't want to judge, because after hearing so much from you and have been hearing, we know that we are judging sometime, and we know Krishna is not liking me judging. So I can pray to Krishna that please, take away this judging mentality. That is also one way, isn't it, Prabhu?
100%. Yeah, that is a prayer which Krishna will be very happy to respond to.
Thank you, Prabhuji. I just wanted to basically thank you for bringing it up. It's so beautiful. Please continue this, Prabhu. We really need it. It's we are very grateful, and thank you for those stories. We will share it with others. The love of Krishna you are giving it through, this chapter. Very grateful, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Okay. We'll continue now. We will see some references from Srimad Bhagavatam, evidences from Srimad Bhagavatam. So, Parikshit Maharaj, we are going to see from the beginning of 6th canto. Parikshit Maharaj's response to Srila Shukadeva Goswami's test in the beginning of the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So you all know this story that Shukadeva Goswami, at the end of the 5th canto, there is a description of the hellish planetary systems. And after that description, Parikshit Maharaj feels very disheartened and disappointed. And he is wondering how can these people who are bound to go to hell, how can they be saved? So he asks Shukadeva Goswami. Shukadeva Goswami wants to test Parikshit Maharaj. He says, oh, Prayaschitta. He says, Drishta Shruta, Karmakandiya Prayaschitta, atonements, he says. Parikshit Maharaj says, impossible. How could you give such an answer? Because this was quite contrary to what was spoken till now. So Parikshit Maharaj says, I will not accept this answer. Karmakandiya atonements. Why? He gives a reason. Drishta Shrutabhyam Yat Papam Janan Api Atmano Ahitam Karoti Bhuyo Vivashah Prayaschittam Atokatam. So Parikshit Maharaj says, Drishta Shrutabhyam Yat Papam. So even though the Jiva knows that simple acts are detrimental, and Atmano Ahitam, it is not favorable for me. Drishta Shrutabhyam, he has seen that indulging in those activities is unfavorable. He has heard about it from the Shastras. But Karoti Bhuyo Vivashah. But again, he helplessly commits these sinful activities again. Prayaschittam Atokatam. What is the use of such an atonement where, despite knowing that it is detriment, he is not giving it up. And he says, Kvachin nivartate abadrat, kvachit charati tatpunaha, prayaschittam ato apartam manye kunjara shauchavat. Kvachit nivartate abadrat. Sometimes he withdraws from that sin. Kvachit charati tatpunaha, and sometimes he commits that sin again. Ato, therefore, manye, in my opinion, prayaschittam apartam. This prayaschitta is useless. Kunjara shauchavat. It is like an elephant taking bath. An elephant takes bath in water, and after that showers dirt on its body. So I think this is I don't think I will not accept this prayaschitta. So he is not just rejecting prayaschitta, he is rejecting prayaschitta for a particular reason. Because even after performing prayaschitta, these people are seen to be again sometimes indulging in those same sinful acts. Therefore, he is rejecting. But now, my question to you is, please notice that Parikshit Maharaj's reason to reject Karmakandiya Prayaschitta. Okay, what is the reason? Because again, such people are seen to commit sinful activities. My question to you now is that, haven't you noticed the same symptoms in yourself and in other sadhakas? This is my question to you. Would anyone like to share your thoughts? Haven't you seen devotees sometimes refraining from unfavorable activities, knowing that it is wrong, but at other times indulging in the same? Yes, Mother Gail. Mother Gail. I thought you raised your
I'm
hand.
sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. Are you asking for the difference between the two, between the Karmakandi?
Eventually I would ask. I'm going to ask that. But right now I'm asking, have you ever observed the same issues with devotees? Seen
I've seen it
in
with
others
myself.
and experienced in yourself. Yeah. Right. So you have seen that, okay, I don't want to do it. I will not do it. And then few days down the line, you see indulging in the same
Every day.
right?
Every day. Yeah.
Every day. Okay, I would not believe that, but still, the point is we do see. But interestingly, when after he rejects this Karmakandiya Prayaschitta, he suggests Jnana Kanda, and Parikshit Maharaj rejects that also. Then Shukadeva Goswami says, Kechit Kevalaya Bhaktya Vasudeva Parayana Agam Dunvanti Katsnena Niharam Eva Bhaskara. He says that then he suggests Bhakti. What about Bhakti? Huh? And Parikshit Maharaj agrees. He does not reject it. Even though he rejected Karmakanda, Prayaschitta, by telling that no, such people again end up indulging in those activities. Now, what is this? Isn't this unfair? Parikshit Maharaj did not reject the path of bhakti when such symptoms that he explained are seen in devotees also. So now my question is, why didn't Parikshit Maharaj reject? This is my question now. Anyone would like to answer? Would anyone like to answer this question? Why didn't Parikshit Maharaj reject bhakti?
Prabhuji, is it because that bhakti will remove the tendency, the whole tendency from the root to sin?
Yeah, that is. Yes, let's see what others also say. Mother Gail.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say the same.
Same thing, right? Correct. And eventually, so I think, I think the answer is God. So I'll not be able to take other answers because the right answer has come. So Parikshit Maharaj did not reject the path of bhakti because Parikshit Maharaj himself, being a devotee, he knew the nature of the path. Okay. None of the staunchest Karmakandiya literates ever suggest that Karmakandiya Prayaschitta can remove the desire to sin. They don't claim that. They claim at the most that the greatest of the sins, the sinful reactions can be removed. But none of the Karmakandiya scriptures themselves actually claim that, that Karmakandi atonement can remove the sin desire, right? And Parikshit Maharaj knew it. And Parikshit Maharaj knew that even though in devotees, that symptom is seen in the beginning stages, over a period of time, it will be gone. That's why Parikshit Maharaj did not raise an issue. So, few verses down the line, Srila Shukadeva Goswami quotes this verse. Sakran Manak Krishna Padara Vindayor Niveshitam Tad Gunaragi Yairiha Nate Yamam Pasha Britasta Tadbatan Swapnepi Pashyanti Hichirna Nishkrita. Persons who only once absorb their mind in Krishna's lotus feet, even in dreams, or even though the mind has still material attraction, do not see the servants of Yama, since they have accomplished all atonement by that remembrance. Anyway, in the purport to this verse, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, that's where I want you to focus. In the purport, he says, if a devotee practicing pure bhakti happens to commit sin again, it is like the bite of a snake without fangs. Those sins have no significant effect. That condition should not be compared to the elephant taking bath, the karmi who again commits sin. Because the Karmakandiya Prayaschitta cannot destroy the sinful desires, whereas the path of bhakti, very clearly, the scriptures glorify the path of bhakti, that it can destroy the sinful desires. So he quotes this verse, Apichet Suduracharo Bhajate Mam Ananyabhak Sadureva Samantavya Samyak Vyavasito Hi Saha. Like that. This is one verse. Okay. Then there is another verse which Vidura is speaking to Maitreya. Vidura is sharing about his own fallen state, out of humility, of course. He is not fallen. So he says, Yascha Mudatamo Loke, Yascha Buddhehe Paramgatah, Tavu Bhau Sukamedete, Plishyatyantarito Jana. So he says two kinds of people are happy. Who are those two kinds of people? He says, Yascha Mudatamo Loke. I see a hand raised, but I will I request you to pause for a few minutes, and I will open it up for discussion. He says two kinds of people are happy. One is Mudatamo Loke. Mudatamo Loke means those who are most foolish in this world, materialistic people. And the second kind of people are Yascha Buddhehe Paramgataha. He who has attained the Lord who is beyond matter. Okay. These two kinds of people are so the one person who is idealistic, okay, and he is very happy, and another person who is perfected devotee, he is also perfectly happy. Tavu bhav sukham edete. Both these people experience happiness. Klishyati antarito jana, whereas others suffer. Now my question to you is, can you please answer, who are these others and why do they suffer? That is my question to you. Who are these others and why do they suffer? What is your understanding? Anyone would like to share your thoughts? Yes, Mother Gail.
So follow.
Is someone else speaking?
Go ahead,
Anyone
Mataji,
can
Hare
speak.
Krishna.
Anita Mataji was trying to speak.
Yeah, one of you can please speak.
Go ahead, Mataji, Gail Mataji, go ahead.
Yeah, there are people in between these two who are suffering. The ones who aspiring devotees, I should say. You know,
Yeah.
they are.
Okay.
Yeah, they're
You
suffering.
can say practicing devotees.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
They're
Yeah.
experiencing this tug of war between the
Yeah.
Shraddha and the Swabhav.
Exactly. So thank you. That's the right answer. Thank you very much. So the perfected devotee, he is happy because if you see, okay, okay. So the perfected devotee, if you see, he is happy because his conditioning and his value system are both elevating. Okay, there is no tug of war. And the materialistic person is happy because his conditioning and his value system are both degrading, but at least they are parallel to each other. They don't create a friction here. But the intermediate person is the sadhaka who has a faith which is pulling him up towards the perfected devotee, but a conditioning which is pulling him down towards the realistic realm. So therefore, this is so the antarito jana is Maitreya is telling, I am that in between person, I am suffering, but he is not. Out of humility, he sees himself as being a not perfected devotee, right? Like that. Okay. At this point, I will again pause. If there are any quick questions, you can please quickly raise your hands. We will take. I think Induleka Karuna Mataji had raised their hands, I think. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. So Prabhuji, like in the previous slide, you were talking about how before this. Yeah, so yes, where we are talking about how a devotee who's practicing devotional service, they commit sinful actions. So I thought the whole process of doing by the process of bhakti itself, you were explaining that all of our sinful reactions get eradicated, or our sinful tendencies also get eradicated.
Gradual.
Okay.
It's gradual. It's not immediate. That's why Prabhupada gives the example of switching off the fan.
Right.
When you put the switch off, the fan does not immediately stop. It takes a while before it stops.
Okay, so if I was not performing any sinful actions before I came into bhakti, and now I have, maybe I had those tendencies, but now that I am in and I start performing, is there a possibility that I would start?
Yeah, you can.
So
Why
that
not?
then it's not like the fan, right, Prabhuji, because the fan was off. And Now it
No,
has changed.
then okay.
I just
That's okay. The fan can. Uh, uh, I mean, you may have seen yourself not performing that activity in this lifetime, but you might have been performing that activity in some of your previous lifetimes. In this lifetime, till you came to Krishna consciousness, maybe there was no sufficient trigger to trigger that desire in you. But after coming to consciousness, for whatever reasons, you may have come in touch with that trigger which actually triggered that thing. So that is, isn't that possible, Mataji?
Mm, okay. But in general, the process of bhakti would kind of, it would burn our contaminations.
Gradually.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Sundari Kopi Mataji.
So Prabhuji, the sadhakas, people like me, not happy. But when I am practicing Krishna consciousness, somewhere I feel I'm happy. So is it an
It's a
illusion or
relative presentation, Mataji. No, no,
okay?
no, no, no. It is a relative thing. Not that you are not happy, but the point is, now my question to you is, you say you are happy, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes when you are not able to practice up to the standard, sometimes when you succumb to some lower desires, do you feel bad?
Yes.
At that stage, you are not happy, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm
That
mix, happy, sad, like that. But that
that's what
happiness, when
I
I am
mean.
saying happy, is that happy or it's illusionary?
Oh, I mean, definitely some pleasure you get due to practice of devotional service. That is true. So here it means it is, don't take it black and white, Madhuri. It's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
that.
Okay.
So it's that the tension will be there whenever the conditioning is pulling you down. At that time, the unhappiness will manifest in the form of regret and repentance. That's the point that he's making.
Okay, got you, got it. Yes, Prabhuji. I was taking black and white, so I wanted to
No,
clarify. Yeah. Thank you so much.
yeah. Hare Krishna. Anita Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, the last slide you were saying about the others. So the one which you displayed now. Yeah, the
Yeah,
others is the others means the sadhakas is what you are
yeah,
saying, or
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
Sadhakas,
okay, fine.
sadhakas. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Okay, let's move on. Now I will read a section from Srila Shivaram Swami Maharaj's book, which is called a Shuddha Bhakti Chintamani, which is a very beautiful book. I strongly recommend every practicing sadhaka to take some time out to study this. It's voluminous book, but it's worth reading. Okay. So now I will read this slide where in one of the chapters, the 26th chapter of that book, he mentions this. I will read and I will ask you for your reflections. You can share your reflections. Okay. Maharaj writes, however, devotees who try their best to perfect their sadhana and to serve the mission, but who are handicapped by their own conditioned nature, can legitimately expect Krishna's kindness. I will read the statement again, very powerful statement. However, devotees who try their best to perfect their sadhana and to serve the mission, but who are handicapped by their own conditioned nature, can legitimately expect Krishna's kindness. Soft-hearted Krishna is sympathetic to the plight of his devotees in Kali Yuga. He knows what Kali Yuga brings, right? He's sympathetic. Thus, if for reasons other than their neglecting the process, they cannot complete their Krishna consciousness, they will receive Lord Chaitanya's gift of love, and Srila Prabhupada's promise of deliverance will certainly be fulfilled. If for the reasons other than neglecting the process, if they are not able to complete, then Chaitanya's gift of love will be there. Therefore, devotees must practice the limbs of devotion, such as controlling the mind, studying the books, perfecting their japa, and remembering Krishna. Okay, at this point of time, I want to pause. Anyone would like to share some reflections on this slide that we read? Are you able to see, what we have discussed? Is it, does this resonate with that? I'm just, Gail Mataji, would you like to share?
That what you just read brought a few verses to my mind. One is the Suracharo verse.
Apichet Suduracharo. Yeah.
9:30 in the Gita, right?
Yeah.
And
Correct.
another one that comes to mind is that verse also from the Gita where he says that Krishna, for the sincere devotee, he
removes the
yes.
This is 10.11. Yeah, 10.11.
Yes.
Tesham evanu kampartam. That was 10.11. Yes, wonderful. Thank you.
And one last thing, which is I think is one of the more powerful ones for me, is in Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 20th chapter, verses 27 and 28.
Correct.
He gives that encouragement to that tug of war devotee.
Tug of war devotee. Yeah, that's a good terminology. Tug of war devotee. Krishna says, be happy, continue your practice, don't doubt the process, and try to practice with more determination. That's what he says. Yeah, perfect, Mataji. Thank you. So basically, this statement, you're able to see that how it resonates with the principle that we have been discussing about this tug of war that happens between Shraddha and Swabhava. Okay, now, so the struggle between Shraddha and Swabhava will continue for a long time, since Anartha Nivritti is a gradual process only. So in his book called Madhurya Kadambini, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes this. He describes 5 stages of Anartha Nivritti. Anartha Nivritti is not an event, it's a process, right? You know that. So Ekadesha Vartini, first one Anartha is gone. Then Bahudesha Vartini, few more Anarthas are gone. Praiki, almost completely gone. Purna, it is completely gone. And then 5th stage is Atyantiki, absolutely gone to such an extent that it cannot return back also. Okay. So he says there are 4 types of anarthas, anarthas which are born out of our sinful past, anarthas which are born out of our pious past, anarthas which are born due to practice of bhakti, and anarthas which are born due to our committing offenses. So he says that during the stage of bhajana kriya and anartha nivritti, these 2 types of anarthas, dushkrutota and sukrutota, are ekadesha vartini, bahudesha vartini, and praiki. So unfavorable desires or anarthas due to our past sinful or pious life is almost gone during bhajana kriya, and it is completely gone during the stage of nishtha. And at the stage of asakti, it is gone to such an extent that it does not return back. So that is, and in terms of bhaktiyotanarthas manifest in the form of desire for name, fame, recognition, like that. He says this is almost completely gone at the stage of bhajana kriya. Before you reach nishtha, it is almost gone. At the stage of nishtha, it is completely gone. Which means when one is nishtha, there is no longer the craving to be recognized, glorified, like that. And at the stage of ruchi, it is gone to such an extent that it cannot come back. But if you see aparadhotta anarthas which are born due to our committing offenses, at the stage of bhajana kriya, only 1 or 2 offenses, 1 or 2 anarthas go away. And at the stage of nishtha, many start going away. And when he reaches bhava, it is almost gone, which still some tinges can be there. and at the stage of prema only it is completely gone. And when he becomes a personal associate of Krishna, only at that time it is gone to such an extent that it cannot return back. So the point that I'm trying to say is that the struggle between Shraddha and Swabhava will continue for a long time. So therefore, when we see devotees exhibiting, acting inappropriately due to their conditioning, that does not necessarily mean that they are insincere devotees. It might just mean that they started the process with a very heavy conditioning, which is taking a while to get destroyed. That's all, right? And it takes its own time. So now someone may say, all the proofs that you have given are only suggestive in one sense. Has any Acharya directly described this concept the way you have described? This was a very strong vacuum in my heart. I thought, yes, these are suggestive, but is there any place where some Acharya has exactly explained this concept the way, based on all these proofs, this was quite clear to me. But I always, whenever I used to present it, I myself had this doubt that, some Acharya should, at least take this subject matter and explain it like that. Few years back, we were discussing the book Jaiva Dharma from the 6th chapter. We were reading this, and when we were reading this, literally, because this was a close group and we were discussing Shastras for the last many years, where I had, for quite a long time, I was describing this tug of war between Shraddha and Swabhava. And when we were reading this particular chapter, literally everyone was looking at each other's face. And, honestly, I could feel my hair standing. My hairs were literally standing because it was so stunning the way Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains this. For those of you who might know, who might not know, Jaiva Dharma is a book in which the whole Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy is described in the form of a novel. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, very brilliant presentation of our Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy in the form of a novel. So here there is a conversation between a logician whose name is Tarka Chudamani and Vaishnavdas Babaji Maharaj, who is a devotee. Okay, so he is asking, Tarka Chudamani is asking, what is this Tattvika Shraddha that you are talking about? So what we call a Shraddha, they call as Tattvika Shraddha. So Vaishnavdas Babaji Maharaj says, simple, guileless faith in the Supreme Lord and consequently sincere bhakti rendered to him is known as Tattvika Shraddha. So he says that, simple, guileless faith in worshipping the Lord, that is Tattvika Shraddha. A sincere candidate is given eligibility to perform bhakti by this Tattvika Shraddha. Then Tarka Chudamani asks, very important question, hear carefully. Some persons have developed faith in the Shastras but lack a noble nature. Are they fit candidates for bhakti? He's asking. They have developed faith in the Shastras, but they may lack a noble nature, like the typical Apichet Suduracharo case. Are they fit candidates for bhakti? Vaishnavdas Babaji Maharaj says, one's type by nature, Swabhava. You see here, the same terminologies are used. He is using the word faith or Shraddha and Swabhava or conditioning. So he says one's type by nature is definitely not applicable to the eligibility to perform bhakti, which is solely dependent upon Tattvika Shraddha. It is Shraddha which defines a devotee and not his Swabhava. That's what he says. So then, this is where, actually, if you see, kindly deliberate upon the verses and see which are the verses that he is quoting. I'm not going to go through them. You see, same verses. Jata Shraddho Matkatasu, the definition of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti that we saw, that Gail Mataji also quoted. And then the very next verse after that also he quotes, Proktena Bhakti Yogena Bhajato Masakrin Mune Kama Hridaya Nashyanti Sarve Mayi Hridisthite. When an intelligent person engages constantly in worshipping me through devotional service as described by me, his heart becomes firmly situated in me. Thus, all material desires within the heart are destroyed. So, same verses that we saw from Bhagavatam. Then Chudamani asked, what if I do not accept the authority of Srimad Bhagavatam? He says, what if I don't accept the authority of Bhagavatam? So he says, Vaishnavdas Babaji Maharaj says, we have simply presented the conclusion of all the Shastras. Shastra is one. Even if you do not accept the Bhagavatam, then the other scriptures will harass you with the same conclusion. He says, you may not accept Bhagavatam. This is not the conclusion of Bhagavatam. This is the conclusion of all the scriptures. He says, we do not need to refer many Shastras. Simply consider what the Gita, a universally honored text, has to give. So then he is quoting from Gita. And guess what verses he is quoting? Apichet Suduracharo, Shipram Bhavati Dharmatma, then Mam Hi Partha Vipashita. He quotes the next verse also. So basically, if you see, this was such a, I would say, redeeming moment for me actually. I was feeling so relieved. Now I can tell, yes, this is not just my mental concoction. Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains the same thing, using the same terminologies, quoting the same verses from Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. It was literally, we were literally celebrating in our group, when we were reading this. It was so, such a relief, actually. So he says, the purport of this is that a devotee who engages in bhakti, hearing topics of Krishna consciousness, chanting Harinam, singing his glories with Ananya Bhak, single-mindedness, even if he is addicted to many abominable illicit activities which go against the scriptural injunctions, must be considered a sadhu because he is on the righteous path, being situated in devotional service. Very quickly he will become purified. Okay, so that is a point that he is making here. So now let us do a small exercise. Okay, in the Shastras, when the Shastras speak about purity, they speak about purity in different ways. Okay, now I am going to ask you a question and you have to answer this question. Okay, keep your be ready in your chat box, or please raise your hands. Better you type it in chat box only because it's a one-word answer. Okay, now I'm reading. Jaya and Vijaya are pure devotees, but the 4 Kumaras are not pure devotees. In this statement, purity refers to what? What does purity refer to in this particular case? Okay, Sundari Gopi Mataji has answered it right. Faith. It refers to faith. Okay, faith. Because Jaya and Vijaya, they are pure devotees, but the 4 Kumaras are mixed devotees. They are Jnana Mishra Bhaktas. Their faith is mixed. Their faith is not pure. So here purity refers to purity of Shraddha. Second statement, please be ready to answer. Rupa Goswami is a pure devotee, but I am not. Here purity is referring to what? Someone says faith. Someone says love. Please think about it. Someone says Prema Bhakti. Yeah. Here, Rupa Goswami is a pure devotee means his faith is pure and he has no material conditioning. But I am not a pure devotee in the sense, even though my faith may be pure, but my conditioning is still impure. So this is here, the second statement, purity is talking about purity of conditioning. Okay. Now, let me present to you a third statement. You please answer this question. Sridama is a pure devotee, but Arjuna is not a pure devotee. What is this talking about? In this case, what does purity refer to? Someone says love. Okay. Someone says faith. I mean, and someone says faith. Isn't Arjuna's doesn't Arjuna is Arjuna's faith impure? Is he not a pure devotee? Yeah, actually, this is talking about his, yeah, correct. Lalitangi Radhamataji says, love with awe and reverence, and love which is beyond awe and reverence. So, the impurity that is present in Arjuna is not material impurity. His faith is pure. His faith is pure, and he has no material conditioning also. But what is impure is the mood of awe and reverence is that impurity. Okay. If you see Vrajabhav as the pure gold standard, then anything less than that is impure. So here purity refers, in the first case, purity refers to purity of faith. Okay. The second case, purity refers to purity of swabhava and faith, of course, right? Swabhava here. And here purity refers to purity of the mood of sweetness. So when scriptures speak out purity, they speak in many different contexts, which can mean many different things. So I want to skip this and finally come to a conclusion. Before we do that, let's do this exercise. Here, I want all of you to very attentively hear and please answer my question. Okay, please attentively hear this. In that very same chapter of Shuddha Bhakti Chintamani, Srila Shivram Maharaj writes, the two major challenges. So Gail Mataji is asking, who was Arjuna compared to? He was compared to Sridama. Sridama is his friend in Vrindavan, and Arjuna is a friend outside Vrindavan. But Arjuna is said to be impure, Sridama is said to be pure. So that there he is referring to the impurity in Arjuna is the mood of awe and reverence that is considered impure. But he is also a pure devotee only. Okay, now please hear this carefully. The two major challenges that ISKCON faces in fulfilling its preaching mission are, first, to transform non-devotees and mixed devotees into pure devotees, and to transform pure devotees into perfect devotees. So there are three categories of devotees mentioned here. This is your litmus test, whether you have understood the whole presentation or not, whether I have been successful in communicating the message or not. The litmus test for both the speaker and hearer is here right now. How you answer this question is going to redeem yourself and redeem me. Okay. So there are three categories of devotees mentioned here. Okay. Maharaj says the two major challenges that ISKCON faces in fulfilling its preaching mission is to transform non-devotees and mixed devotees into pure devotees. Okay. And to transform pure devotees into perfect devotees. There are four categories of devotees. Four categories of devotees mentioned here. Non-devotees, mixed devotees, pure devotees, perfect devotees. Okay. Now my question to you is, please think and answer based on what we have discussed. Of these four categories, which category do you think you fall into? I will ask you to explain your answer. So please think and answer. Don't just answer. Which of these four categories do you think you belong to? Okay, Mother Gail has raised her hands. Yes, Mataji. Mother Gail.
Yeah, I'm shaking as I say pure devotee.
Can you speak the full sentence, Mataji? You have to say, I
Yes,
am at
I believe that I can consider myself a pure devotee.
Jai, thank you very much. I think everyone should. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, anyone else would like to answer? I see a few answers in the chat box. Okay. Okay, Lalitangi Radha Mataji also says pure devotees. That is correct. Sundari Gopi Mataji says mixed devotee, and she has to explain it. Okay. Induleka Mataji says pure devotee. Okay, so there are few other mixed devotees. So Hari Prasad Prabhu also says pure devotee. Okay. Yeah, pure devotees. Yeah. Anita Mataji says pure and mixed. That's a very interesting answer. So I would, maybe she can clarify what she means. Anita Mataji, would you like to clarify? Why do you say it is pure and mixed?
Prabhuji, pure devotees, they are already in a state of goodness. So,
Your voice is not clear, Mataji. Can you speak
Hare Krishna,
again?
can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Prabhuji, pure devotees already they are in the mode of goodness. So it's easy for us to make them into perfect devotees, which is in ISKCON we are doing. And the mixed devotees,
No,
they are.
when did I say that pure devotees are in mode of goodness, Mataji? Is there anywhere in our discussion where we discuss that pure devotees are in mode of goodness?
Like they are not in Shuddha Sattva, but there is some mixing in that.
I understand, but is there anywhere?
Yeah.
Is there anywhere we? Then who are mixed devotees then?
Prabhuji.
Who are mixed devotees then?
Mixed devotees, they are into bhakti and also in sense gratification.
So pure devotees have material mode of goodness, mixed devotees have material modes of passion and ignorance. Is that what you say?
Yes, Prabhuji, that's what I mean.
Okay, we did not discuss it in that way. We discussed that pure devotees are those who have pure faith. So you have pure devotees in practice, pure devotees in perfection. Pure devotees in practice have pure faith but contaminated swabhava. But perfected devotees have pure faith and completely pure swabhava. That's how we discuss. Okay, one last point. Janaki Mataji, did you want to answer or do you have a question?
Just clarification, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. How do we translate the conditioned? I don't know how to say it, but the conditioned jivas, which of these categories they would belong to? 1, 2, 3, or 4? Is it pure devotee category? We every time hear that we are conditioned jivas, but our soul is pure. So I was just trying to translate that to these categories where that belongs.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Prabhuji,
Krishna.
I hear you.
And then there is swabhava.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, we missed the first part, Prabhuji. We couldn't hear you then.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think.
And anyway, Prabhu was writing. That's the one Prabhu was speaking.
Yeah. And then there is swabhava. Just hold on for a second. Yeah. And then there is swabhava, which can be contaminated. Okay. So when you say conditioned souls, non-devotee is conditioned, mixed devotee is conditioned. And here the so-called pure devotee is pure in faith, but he is also conditioned. And only the perfected devotees are free of conditioning. So if you say which category do the conditioned souls, which category do they fall?
They can be non-devotees if they have no faith in Krishna. They can be mixed devotees if they worship Krishna for some material benefits. They can be pure practicing devotees who may worship Krishna only for pleasing him, but still may be struggling with their material conditioning. So of these, so we all are conditioned souls, but at the perfection, anyway, we are one last slide. I have come to the end. So in conclusion, I want to conclude with this. Nitya Siddhas like Rupa Goswami.
Hare Krishna. Sorry, Prabhuji, we can't hear you again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah. I will conclude with this. This is the last slide of the presentation. Nitya Siddhas like Rupa Goswami, they have pure faith and pure swabhava. Their faith is pure, their swabhava is pure. But sadhana siddhas like Narada Muni, who perfected by practicing sadhana, they have pure shraddha and purified swabhava. Purified swabhava means which was at some point impure, but later it became pure. Okay. Sadhakas like us, we have pure shraddha and purifying swabhava. We are work in progress, right? And mixed devotees have impure shraddha. You can say mixed devotees and non-devotees, they have impure shraddha, like that. Okay. This brings us to the end of my presentation. Any final comments before we wind up for the day? Anything anyone would like to share? Janaki Mataji, your hand is up. Did you want to ask something?
No, thank you, Prabhuji. I got the answer for previous clarification. That's one,
Hare
second, and third categories of, yes,
Yeah.
Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you. Sundari Gopi Mataji.
Prabhuji, I wanted to check, see this conditioning that we have. So yes, I mean, it will eventually go away. Is it right?
Correct.
Okay.
If we continue to practice bhakti.
Okay. So now I'm trying to do that, but now with our kids, we wherever we go, be it India or US, still they are building some conditioning, and they already have some from their previous whatever. Yeah. And whatever faith we could instill, because whatever they saw in and around them, they have some kind of faith. They haven't taken up Krishna consciousness. So where do they stand? They are non-devotees?
Time will reveal, Mataji.
Okay, fine. So yes, perfectly fine. So now I wanted to check with you. Now in this current time, now wherever we are, how do we take care? I mean, is there anything that we can do to take care of their conditioning?
Well, as much as possible, you keep the house, vibrant with Krishna consciousness, and make that Krishna consciousness likable to them, so that they don't find Krishna consciousness to be don't do this, don't do that, do this, do that, but they find it very vibrant and inviting and exciting, so that their entertainment also they get through Krishna consciousness. That way they will not seek out elsewhere.
I knew this answer, Prabhuji, but the material world is very much attractive, even to me. After practicing for so long, I feel it is more interesting. How can a child, because see, if for example, if Radhika likes to read books, there are more interesting books outside of Krishna consciousness than in Krishna conscious movement. She does read the biographies and all, but it's hard for me to gather, interesting stuff. I mean, you have anything more?
Yeah,
Or, I mean,
it's hard. but you need to keep trying, Mataji. That's the only way. We have to try our best, because in the outside world they are trying. We have to try our best. Keep keep and this is one thing. And the second thing is, uh, keep there will be a time when they are grown up enough to make their own choices, decide what is right, what is wrong. You may see them choosing that which may not be necessarily devotional, but you should try not to judge them. uh, uh, make sure that your affection is available for them irrespective of their choice of devotional service or not. That way, they will develop a very because wherever there is that non-judgmental tendency, it creates a very nice okay wherever there is this non-judgmental tendency, it creates a very nice scope for a good bond.
Yeah,
So
their
there will
hearts are
be
open to us.
yeah. So then later they may see that, and when they keep appreciating us, they may keep accumulating agyata sukriti, and over a period of time which may transform into faith, and they may take up to devotional service.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you very much for that.
Hare Krishna. Janaki Mataji, last question, and then we will have to wind up.
This is more of an extension to Mataji's point, and I wanted to just comment and ask this, that despite knowing that there are more interesting or maybe interesting and curious things outside of our vicinity of bhakti and Krishna consciousness, but Prabhuji, is it okay to say that even those individuals, they are also Krishna's, right? And so let's say if there is interesting autobiography of Adolf Hitler, and if there is something that is inspiring from there to Sundari Gopi Mataji, and she says that that's more interesting than reading this, then can we not dovetail that quality, some good quality, because Adolf Hitler had a purpose? For example, I'm just using that extreme example to get more clarity.
When someone is reading, what aspect of that biography will inspire the children, you would never know. For you, Adolf Hitler's determination might inspire you, but for someone else, Adolf Hitler's hatred of the Jews might inspire them. So, I mean, you never know. So, so therefore, I mean, we can't do anything. We can try our best to facilitate. They have a very joyful experience growing up in Krishna consciousness, but when they reach a stage where they are ready to make their own choices and they have the independence to do so, all we can do is to be a very good friend and be available for them, so that and consciously avoid being judgmental, so that they feel inspired to take up to devotional service later.
So to her point, I also thought that maybe Mataji also likes reading other autobiographies. She said that she also has that proclivity. So she asked a very valid question, that what is it that is interesting? I know we said that it has to be developed by practice and then develop that habit, that it appears or it is interesting to us also, because outside world will have a lot of bells and whistles to attract you on the other side.
Well, I mean, I'm still trying to understand your question. Yes, there are a lot of attractive things. So what is the question, Mataji?
So to her point, she is trying to say that there are interesting things outside also to read that's available.
Yeah, that is why we have to take the responsibility to make Krishna consciousness very interesting. It is interesting, but we have to endeavor to do that. Just
correct.
Like you can make a class interesting, you can make a kirtan interesting, you can make prasadam fabulously interesting. There are so many ways of doing it, and we have to, it is our responsibility, it is our service to Krishna, that
yes, Prabhu.
when we do it, then someone gets attracted.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. I think we will have to pause here. It's already way past.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you. Very beautiful class. Amazing class, Prabhu. Like always, it was just amazing. Dear devotees, it's very late and Prabhuji has to go too. So let us pay our obeisances to Prabhuji. Vancha kalapataru bhashacha vacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah.
Namo Namaha.
Granth Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ji ki jai. His Grace Balaram Shakti Prabhu ki jai. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you so much for your time. So much time you give to us, Prabhu. Thank you so much,
Prabhuji. Wonderful class.
Thank you, Prabhu. And
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
so much work, Prabhu, you
Hare
have done
Krishna.
on these slides. It's
Amazing
amazing, Prabhu.
class,
Thank you so
Prabhuji.
much, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhuji. Koti, koti